Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me on our 365 Days with Jesus, also known as Reading the Bible in a Year Challenge. My name is Yvette Andino, and I'm so glad to be back with everyone. So now we're finally in the book of First Kings, where in which our brother Luis did a really amazing job last week, and now this week is my turn to continue the first book of Kings. Today we're gonna do chapters 13, 14, and 15. And chapter 13 talks about Jeroboam, who is one of the new kings of Israel from um that were, how do you say, like, God allowed Jeroboam and his descendants to become the lineage or the royal lineage of Israel, which he cut off from David's. However, he still had another, like a grandson of David, in charge of Judah. So remember, Israel, what we known as the nation of Israel today, was broken up in two, called Israel and Judah. Judah was a very big part of Israel, but they had it as like two sovereign states to make it, a little simpler for us to understand in our modern terminology. So Jeroboam was actually a wicked man in the sense where he devoted himself into pagan worship, and the Lord was very upset with him because he kept establishing altars for like pagan gods like Asherah and different gods and goddesses. And God is and you know how we always say, he's zealous, and he's also a jealous God, meaning he doesn't switch the value. Like, if we are going to prioritize God as something secondary, and we're going to have like another god, let's say like Zeus, like, because a lot of us know Zeus or Greek mythology, um he won't respect that switch. Like, oh, if I was the to God and now I'm more into Zeus or more with Asherah, and then you put one above him, he doesn't tolerate that, right? Just like there are deal breakers and things we don't tolerate, God doesn't tolerate that at all. So Jeroboam had this altar, a pagan altar, and in pagan altars back then was very I'm not sure of the word, but it's just very inappropriate. Because a lot in these pagan altars there would be a lot of orgies, a lot of things that just God was like, I don't approve, child sacrifices, like things were like, no. So there was a man of God who came, and he was blessed with the Holy Spirit, telling this curse to Jeroboam, as of now, in generations later, there's going to be a king Josiah who's going to destroy all these pagan priests, and they're going to use that altar you made. He's going to kill all those priests on it. And Jeroboam tried to, like, I guess, hurt this man of God, and when he tried to, like, to use his hand, maybe like a punch or something, um Jeroboam tells his soldiers, seize him, and then and his hand which he had put out against him withered, so that he was unable to pull it back himself. That's found in this last part of verse 4, chapter 13 of First Kings. So it's amazing how when God has your back, God has your back. Like, no enemy can destroy you or give any toxicity to you. God is our protection. So um what's very interesting is that this prophet was, we call it him the man of God, or prophet, God's messenger. He was disobedient, and he actually has a tragic ending where God had told him, you cannot go the way you came to see Jeroboam. You're going to go the different way, and you're not going to accept anyone who's offering you bread or water or shelter. You're going to listen to me and, rely on me and depend on me. He did everything well until this other old prophet that lived in this town of Bethel tells him, he heard of the what happened, so he wanted him to, invite him over. The intention behind it, when I was reading, I didn't understand why. I don't know if he was trying to be, how we say in Spanish, chismoso, or just trying to gossip, or just trying to be a, how we say in Spanish, metiche, just trying to be a little know-it-all, knowing everything. But he lied to this prophet, saying, hey, God actually told me, yeah, he did tell you to not accept anyone's food or drink, but he told me you can only accept mine. I'm also a prophet as well. Like, look at my reputation, look at my history. Unfortunately, the one we call the man of God, the one who gave that curse to Jeroboam, listen, and then God cursed this prophet, like, no, you disobey me. Remember, you had to keep my word and be loyal. So he ended up dying a very not so happy death where a lion killed him. However, the lion never ate him or his donkey, because back then they didn't have cars, they used donkeys for transportation. And so it's weird, like the lion was here, let's say, the dead prophet here, and the donkey, it was kind of like a creepy secret thing. Like it's just weird, like the lion didn't eat him, he just killed him and that's it. um when the prophet, who was a liar, or what I call him the metiche, um i I don't understand, and I hope God gives me a little more understanding, but God does not have to explain himself to me. I also think this prophet should have paid some sort of consequence, in which he does, and he'll explain it. He actually takes the body, he tries to bury it, and he tells his own son, listen, I know my time is running up here too. Please, if you're going to he had asked him, uh, when I am dead, verse 31, to his sons, that the prophet that started this whole horrible setup, bury me in the grave in which the man of God is buried, and lay my bones beside his bones. Sounds like a little bit of loyalty here. For the words which he cried out by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, against Jeroboam, and against all the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, shall certainly come to pass. Yeah, so that is why I think he just wanted a place, like, if, listen, I'm gonna die, I just want to have my own burial while everyone else won't, as they're not going to. Um, Unfortunately, at the end, verses 33 to 34 of the chapter, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way, but made again priests for the high places, for like the pagan worship, and then idol worship became the main sin or key factor in the house of Jeroboam, to blot it out, eliminate it from the face of the earth. So God was very, very upset. I apologize. um so First Kings chapter 14. Now chapter 14, chapter 15 talks about who became the next king, the next successor, what happened. So the next king, there was another prophet called Ahijah, and he actually prophesies against as well Jeroboam. Jeroboam has this son who's very sick, and he tells his wife, "Hey, wife, like, hi, queen, like, please go find Ahijah, ask him what God is going to do with our son. He's very sick, but I want you to dress up and not admit or identify who you really are." Obviously, the queen, as his wife, listens to him and does it. And then God tells the prophet, like, hey, Ahijah, she's coming, just so you know, is Jeroboam's wife. Like, she's just disguising herself. And the prophet calls her out on that, like, hey, why are you disguising yourself? And, she's probably like, well, I'm just listening to my husband. Ahijah had a very not so nice message to her, saying that the son will die. And it's actually a very merciful thing, because he's saying, like, the way everyone else is gonna die, it's like he kind of saved that son, like had mercy in a way, just calling him, like, he died in his sleep. He says, I bring evil on the house or the royal land of Jeroboam, and I will cut off, destroy from Jeroboam every male, both bond of the free, and Israel will utterly sweep away the house of Jeroboam as one sweeps away dung until it is all gone. That's verse 10. And it just keeps going horrendously, but these are consequences that Jeroboam had to face. And unfortunately, that son who was sick died. Now, there's this other son, I'm sorry, a son of Solomon, who is the king of Judah, Rehoboam. So it's like Jeroboam, but Rehoboam. Um, he misleads Judah. He misleads that part of Israel. Like, remember, it's divided in two. He misleads them, and God was very jealous, because again, it's again with the pagan worship, pagan and idolatry worship. And I just want to make sure. And the king of Egypt back then, his name was Shishak, or Jeroboam's brother-in-law, actually takes a lot of the treasures from the temple. And then King Rehoboam, verse 27, made bronze shields to replace them, and handed them over to the captains of the palace of the guard who guarded the doorway. Um, Everything else about Rehoboam, they're also in the first book of Chronicles in the Bible. And there's always was constant like civil war, basically Israel against itself, with Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And then it talks about, he died and he was buried with his fathers. And now, last but not least, First Kings chapter 15 talks about Abijam reigns over Judah. Abijam, he is one of Jeroboam's son, becomes the next king of Judah. And it talks about the different timeline. There was something that was very interesting. Abijam, follows his father into pagan worship. And then I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Asa. So Asa is the grandchild of David, and he just does an amazing job with God. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 11 in 1 Kings 15. He expelled all the male cult prostitutes or the sodomites from the land, removed all the idols that his fathers, Solomon, Rehoboam, and Abijam had made. He also deposed his great grandmother Makkah from being queen mother because she had made a horrid or obscene or vulgar image to the goddess Asherah. And he also cut that image down. So it was awesome that he was still able to do God's will. And again, there was a civil war with Israel and Judah. I'm making sure. Yeah. And then we have Jehoshaphat. He becomes the next king after King Asa. So Asa did God's will. Like, he listened to what God said. That's amazing. If we can accept God's will in our lives, I'm sure our life would be so much easier. And then we got Nadab, then Basha. They really in Israel. They also were in the way of adultery. They were exposed with that. Abasha actually is one of the future rulers of Israel, and he actually struck down all the household of Jeroboam. Verse 29, he did not leave for Jeroboam anyone alive. He destroyed them in accordance with the word of the Lord, which he has spoken through his servant Ahijah. And then the story continues in the first book of Chronicles. I'm sorry, one of my moods a little. I'm just. It's been a very exhausting week, but I've been very blessed. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. I hope to start wrapping up with the insights. I guess my insight will be, for God, obedience is much more valuable than sacrifice. Trusting in God could be kind of like a mandate in a way. If we want to thrive in this world, we need to trust in God and trust ourselves too, that we can trust God. And number 3, don't ever allow society dictate your destiny or your future, your decisions. Like, look, Jeroboam was trying to like maybe please the crowd, like, yeah, I'll do this pagan god, yeah, I will do this. But look, it just went through ruin. So please don't satisfy um anyone's expectations of you. Always satisfy the Lord's expectations, which are amazing and pure and holy. He's always with us. He'll never leave us. So thank you so much and have a great day or a great afternoon or evening wherever you're tuning in. God bless.